This week's episode of RBtv is brought to you by RBlibrary.com. Real basic made really simple. So here's the deal. RBlibrary.com features a ton of information from names you can trust. The site has to definitely be one of the most valuable tools in the Real Basic community. They have step-by-step guides and tutorials you can purchase and download right to your desktop. They cover everything from networking to game design to databasing. RBlibrary.com is just fantastic. I can't wait to see what they come out with next. So definitely, guys, go check them out. RBlibrary.com. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to RBtv Episode 3. I'm your host, George Bonish. For those of you who have never tuned in before, RBtv is a video podcast covering some of the latest tips and tricks for the Real Basic development environment. So Real World Conference 2007 recently occurred in Austin, Texas, and I got tons of emails from you guys telling me about how you heard about RBtv there, and I just wanted to thank all of you for the wonderful emails and all the support you've been giving me. I got a lot of questions and ideas about what I should do in future shows, and I thought on today's episode I would go ahead and take one of those questions and cover it and answer it. It makes a pretty good episode. So here I have a letter from Ben in New York. Ben says, "Hey George, I was wondering if it was possible to save the size and position of a window even after my application has been quit." Well, Ben, it is possible, and it's quite easy actually. And that's actually going to be a pretty good topic for today's episode. So if you have Real Basic installed, go ahead and open it up and let's get started. So the first thing we want to do before we even start, let's go ahead and save our project so we have a nice hard copy of it. So you can go up to File and Save. I'm going to name it RBtv Episode 3. And you can just hit Save. Okay, so the next step, let's go ahead and rename Window 1 here to something a bit more appropriate. You know, in Episode 2 I talked about how important it is to have a common naming scheme throughout your project to make it a lot easier for you and anybody else that's going to be looking at your code to follow along with the code and figure out exactly what's going on. So go ahead and select Window 1 here. I'm going to name Window 1 W main, and then again W stands for window and main is just the main window, and you can name it anything you want, anything that you feel comfortable with. So go ahead and open up window main here, and let's go ahead and change the title of the window. So make sure window main is selected there, and come over here to our property value pane and select the title property. Now let's change the title property. Let's change the title to let's see, RBtv Episode 3, and hit return to change that, and you'll notice it's get reflected right up here. Let's go ahead and save that. Alright, so in today's project what we're going to be doing is creating a few static text objects here on Window 1 that are going to be dynamically updated using our code that's going to give us information about the window properties like the width and the height and the X and Y locations relevant to the screen of the operating system. And along with those, we're going to go ahead and cover how to save those window properties out to a file so that the next time the application opens we can actually load those from the file and restore the window to how it was when the user closed the application. So the first thing we're going to do, let's go ahead and add a new control here. It's called the group box control. You'll notice it right here. And what the group box control does is it's more of a visual control that allows you as a developer to group a whole bunch of controls together and give them a title, which actually makes it a bit easier for the person that's going to be using the application to see kind of a larger category of controls. It allows you to separate them much easier. So go ahead and double click on the group box property and go ahead and drag it up to the top left there so that it snaps to the grid. Let's go ahead and expand it right here to the other side, and let's do it about a height of 160. That sounds about good for now. And the group box control, like a lot of other controls, contains a caption property which is going to be displayed right here. You'll notice it's set to untitled by default, and you can see it over here in the property value pane. So let's go ahead and change that to something a bit more appropriate. I'm going to go ahead and change this to window properties, and you can hit return to save that. Go ahead and save the project. And so now you can see there's just a little box right around here, and it's going to look a little bit different in Windows or Linux, but they're all going to pretty much do the exact same thing. And what we can do, if you remember from episode 2, I covered how you can embed controls within another control. Group boxes allow us to embed controls within itself. So if we need to move them all, we can just grab this title here, or this caption here, and just drag it along the window, and all the controls embedded within it will go ahead and follow. So I'm just going to go ahead and run this for you guys, just so you can see what it looks like when the program is run. And again, you can just hit this little play icon or run icon right up top here. You can see it looks pretty much the same. There's no way to interact with it. You can't highlight the text or anything like that. Now let me go ahead and quit this really quick. Now watch whenever I run the application again. You'll notice that the window defaults to the upper left hand side of the screen. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and you'll notice. You see it starts right up here, and you'll notice I always kind of move the window here into the middle, and it gets a little bit annoying after a while if if you're using the application, since it's not going to be saving your position. So let's go ahead and quit this, and let's add 4 static text objects here that are going to give us our window position and size. So go ahead and scroll down here on the control pane and locate the static text control. Let's go ahead and double click on this to add it to the window there. Let's do it another time, and another time. And go ahead and position these however you see fit. I'm just going to go ahead and bring it right there, maybe there, and one there. And maybe let's drag these, and if you remember, you can hold down Control, or if you're on a Mac, Command, to select more than one control. Let's go ahead and move it right about, I'd say here. That looks about good. And we're going to go ahead and expand these to right about a width of 112. So I can manually enter this in here, 112, and you'll notice it just drags it to the end there. And let's do the same with these. 112, and let's move them over a bit to the left. Perfect. Alright, so now we have enough room for our numbers to get displayed here. And let's go ahead and rename these to what each of the fields are going to be. So for this top left one, go ahead and select that and come over here to our text property and click on the text property there. And let's change this to width. So what we're going to have displayed here is going to be the width of our window. And hit return to set that property. This lower one, let's go ahead and change this to height. And this top right one, let's make it left. And by left, I mean how far from the left the window is. And the way Real Basic works is it's going to give you a number of pixels. So let's say 100 pixels. So it's going to be 100 pixels away from the left-hand side of the screen. And it's also you can think of it as just an X property. If you are familiar with that in mathematical terms. And then for this one, let's go ahead and do the top, or the Y property. And just like the left, the top value is going to be how far from the top of the screen in the operating system the window is. And again, that's going to be returned to us in a pixel value. So you can go ahead and deselect that. Let's save that and run the application just to show you what it's going to look like on the screen. So you'll see there's still nothing going on there. You can't see any numbers, nothing updates yet, and the window is still not resizable yet. So go ahead and quit this, and let's enable the resizing properties of this window. So make sure window main is selected. Come over here to our live, resize, and resizable checkboxes. So let's go ahead and enable these two properties. And you'll notice here our little resizing widget appeared. And if you watch here, I'll go ahead and enable this and disable it. You notice it pops up. Go ahead and save that. So now that we have these 4 static text objects, let's give them some appropriate names. Let's select this width one here, come up to the name, and I'm going to go ahead and put ST for static text. Let's do width, and I'm going to go ahead and name this ST height. It's going to be ST left, and this ST top. Alright, so now everything is named appropriately and we can easily reference each one of these static objects within our code. So now that we have all the properties set in the design field, let's go ahead and switch to the code view of window 1 here, and you can just double click anywhere on the window and it'll switch there. Alright, now we're in the open method of window main, and what we're going to want to do in the open window here is set an initial value to our 4 static text objects here. And to do that, it's going to be real simple. To explain to you a little bit about how we're going to get the data from the window, each window class contains a left, top, width, and height property value that you can just easily call and will return an integer to you. So what we're going to do is reference the left, the top, the width, and the height properties of window main here, and actually set those values to the static text on the main page, or on the main window. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and start with the width property there. And to do that, let's reference stWidth.text. And again, what this is going to reference the text property, or the text value of this static text object right here. So by doing this, we're going to be changing what is displayed here. So let's go ahead and hit space there, and again, the equal operator is what actually makes that change. And since we're going to want to keep the word width colon here, we're going to want it to say, you know, width colon space and then a number. So in order to do that, we need to again type in the word width colon and then a space. And to do that, we're going to add open quotes there and type width colon and space and close the quotes. Now, it's important to have the space here, otherwise your number is going to look a bit off. Plus, and then here's where we're going to reference the width value of the window. And as I mentioned in episode 2, each object contains a me property, or a me value. And whenever you use the me value, you're basically just referring, you're referencing the object itself that's calling this. So basically, when I say me.width, I'm saying window main.width. Now, me.width is going to be an integer value, and we can't set an integer to a string, which is the .text here. So we're going to have to use the string function, or the str function that I talked about in episode 2, to convert this integer to a string. So we can just do str and then open parentheses and then come to the end here, and close that off. So let's go ahead and save this, and I'll run it. And as soon as we run this and it opens up, you're going to notice that there's going to be a width and then a number right there, and that number that's going to be referenced is going to be in pixels. So let's go ahead and do that. And here you'll notice 300. So the window right now is 300 pixels wide right here. Now if we resize it, it's not going to change because we only have that code in the open event, so it's only calling as soon as the window gets opened. So let's go ahead and close this, and if I switch back to window main here and select it, you'll notice if I come over here, our width is 300. So that property is correct. So let's go ahead and do the same thing for the height and the left and the top here. So let's come back here. We can just do stheight.text equals height plus string me.height, and then sttop.text equals, let's see, it was x plus string me.top, and the final one is going to be stleft.text equals left x plus string me.left. Alright, so let's save this and run, and all our values should be properly associated. And there we go. So we have a width of 300 and a height of 300, and you'll notice it's a square here. and we have a left of 10 and a top of 50. So now you may be wondering at what point does it measure this left and what point does it measure the top. So the left is going to be measured by this left border here of the window, this entire left line here. And the top is going to be measured right at the top of this little menu bar here, this little title bar here. It's going to be right there. And now we have a top of 50, but you'll notice it's actually a pretty small distance from the top of my menu bar here, but it's actually measuring from the very top of my screen, so all the way up top here. So this is about 50 pixels, and this space right here is going to be about 10 pixels. Well, it is 10 pixels. So we can go ahead and quit this. Well, actually, before we quit that, you'll see I'm going to be dragging in it and still not resizing any, or I mean, it's not renaming any of these to update the size and the position of them. So let's go ahead and do that in the next step. So let's quit this. Let's go ahead and switch our methods from the open method to the resizing method here. And you'll see a resized and a resizing. So the difference between resized and resizing is that when a user is actually in the process of resizing the window, that's when this resizing value is going to be called. So basically, while the user is resizing, this is going to be called many times. So that's how we're going to have it live update. And then the resized event or resized method is going to be as soon as the user has resized it and let go of their mouse. That's when this resized event is going to be called. So for the resizing event, we really don't need our left and our top positions to be updated, since they're not really moving the window up and down. They're just going to be moving the width and the height of it. So we can just copy these two these two lines of code here, and come over here to our resizing event and just paste these two in. And let's go ahead and save that. And so now, as soon as the user starts resizing the window, this is going to keep getting called, and it's going to update the static text that was displayed on the window there. So let's go ahead and run this, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So you see I can still move this, and nothing gets updated. But watch these two values right here as soon as I start moving the window. You notice my width gets bigger as I move it bigger, and my height gets bigger as soon as I move it bigger. Now my mouse has not lifted yet. My mouse click has not lifted, so the resized property hasn't been called yet. But as soon as I stop here, and now I'm lifting my mouse right now, now is when the resized property would have been called. And let me go ahead and I'll throw a message box in there just to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about. So we'll go ahead and put here message box resized. Now message boxes are a good way to kind of debug your program without actually debugging your program. If you're trying to figure out where you're getting stuck at executing something, just stick a message box there and you can see if you're even ever getting there. So let's go ahead and run this here. And you'll notice I resize, and the message box isn't coming up yet. But as soon as I let go of the mouse, then it was called. I can do it again. Let go of the mouse, and it was called. So you can see the difference between resized and resizing. So if you need to do something specific here, you can. If you do something specific here, you can. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this and save the project. So now we have our width and height covered. Let's go ahead and do the left and the top. So now there's not a moving event, but there is a moved event. So as soon as the user moves the window and lets go of the mouse, this move event here will get called. So when that happens, we're going to want these two lines of code here to get updated. So we're going to want the left and the top position of the window to get updated. So let's go ahead and copy these two and come over here to the moved event and paste them in. And so now every time the user moves the window, this line of code is going to get called, and it's going to update the properties that are displayed on the screen. So let's go ahead and save and run that. Again, right now we're left 10 pixels and top 50 pixels. So if I move this here, you notice it's still 10 and 50, but as soon as I let go of the mouse, they update. So now on 372 pixels from the left of the screen, 243 from the top of the screen. If I move it up, 44 pixels from the top, still 373. And you'll notice my width and height have not changed since I haven't resized the window, but as soon as I do that, everything still works, and my left and my top remain the same. So let's go ahead and quit this, and we can close the window main code view here. So now I'm going to introduce a new concept called modules. And now what a module is, you can think of it sort of a portable container for pretty much anything you want to add to it. You can add methods, you can add functions, properties, events, pretty much anything within Real Basic you can add to it. And it's a good way to kind of group functions or properties that are going to be related to each other together, so that they can access themselves, but they can't be accessed through other places in the program. And it may sound a bit confusing now, but you'll understand a bit more as soon as we start working with it. So the first thing we're going to do, switch to the project pane here, or project tab, and right click anywhere here on the window, or you can come up here and click add module, either way. But you can just right click there and go to add and module. You'll see we got a new module here named module 1. Now this module is going to be our preferences module, and by preferences module I mean we're going to load our preferences, save our preferences, format all our preferences, and all our properties that we're going to be writing out to the preferences file are going to be contained within this module. So let's go ahead and select module 1 here and rename it to preferences and hit return to save that. And let's go ahead and double click on this module to open it up. So now basically you see absolutely nothing, and that's because it's an empty module. Now we can choose to add anything we want in here. You can see up top we have add constant, add note, method, property, anything you want you can add it to this. In our case we're going to go ahead and add 4 properties, and in this case they're going to be the width, the height, the left, and the top. So you can just click on this one. Let's go ahead and change this to, I'm going to do P for property, and then win for window, and then height for obviously the height. And we're going to want to keep it as an integer, and then equals, and again this equals value is just going to be the default, and let's go ahead and set it to 300, since 300 was our default value anyways. So you can hit return to save that. And again, as a property we could have set this as a string or a double or an integer, which an integer is a number, string is a string of text, a double is basically just a longer number. There's lots of stuff we could have set this to, but in this case we're just going to want to have it as an integer since it's going to be a pretty relatively small number. So let's go ahead and add another property. Let's name this pwin width and keep that as an integer, and let's change this to 300 and save that. Let's add a third property, property win top, and let's just have this at 0. And then again property when left, let's make this one 0 as well. Alright, so now we have these 4 properties here listed, so we can easily set them or get them as we need. So now let's go ahead and add a few methods here. And what a method is, it's basically just a function that we can call that we're going to have it do something. So in our case we're going to have 2 main functions and kind of 1 supporting function. And our 2 main ones are going to be load preferences and save preferences. And so whenever our application starts up, we're going to simply call the load preferences file or a method, and it's going to do everything we need it to do to get our window and our preferences loaded where we need it to be. So let's start off with our save preferences method. So go up here to the little toolbar up top and click the add method button. And you notice we have a couple of things we can change here. First thing, let's do method name, and what we're going to do is let's change it to save prefs, since this is going to be our save preferences method. And for parameters and return type, we're not going to have anything in these 2 for this episode. We really don't need it. But if you come over here to the right side, you notice these 3 buttons here: a little globe, a little caution sign, and a little red circle with a white line, I guess. And as I roll my mouse over, if you look in the bottom left hand side of the window here, you'll notice what each button does. And this first one is called a global method. What a global method means is that I can call this save preferences method from anywhere in the application. I basically, if I'm in window main, since our module here is not part of window main, it's its own entity or its own object. The save prefs method is not within window main, it's within preferences. So if I set this to a global method, then window main will simply be able to call save prefs. Window main will simply be able to call save prefs, and all the preferences will get saved. But in our case, we're going to want to do the second one here. And what a public method it means is that in order to call save prefs, whatever is going to be using this has to call the preferences method first, and then use a dot operator, which is going to give us a list of everything within preferences, and then save prefs. So basically, let's say this was window main here, we'd have to type preferences, which would access our preferences module, and then put a dot, and then do save prefs. And the difference in that, as opposed to being global or being public, is that it makes it a bit more secure and kind of organizes things, so you know exactly where your save prefs method is coming from. And if you have 100 modules, you don't have to figure out where your save preferences method is. And this last one here is a private method. And a private method means that only other objects within this preferences module can access save prefs. So if I were to change this here to public, well, here, let me show you. We come over here to window main. If I just go to the open event here, and I do preferences, so I'm accessing the preferences module now, and I do dot save prefs, you notice it automatically completes for us. That means it can actually see the method. But if I delete this and I come back over here to the preferences module, changes to private, switch over here, you notice I can still access the preferences module, but I no longer see the save preferences method. So we're going to go ahead and keep that at public here, just to kind of organize things a bit. And let's go ahead and save that, and we can just delete this. So we're going to introduce quite a few new ideas within the save preferences method here. So if you get confused about anything, just go ahead and rewind the video and play this over, because I'm going to try and go as slow as I can, try and explain everything as much as I can. So let me tell you a little bit about the kind of the process that we're going to go through here. Real Basic contains a class type called text input stream and text output stream. Now what the two of those are, a text input stream, a text output stream allows you to basically write out text to a file, or write out anything basically you want to a file. It doesn't have to be text. It could be a, whether any type of string, an integer, anything you wanted. And in order to save out to a file, we're going to need to create a new text output stream, just like you would any other variable. So we're going to have to initialize it up top here, and give it a variable name. And it's pretty simple to use a text output stream. And now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have what's called a folder item class. And what a folder item class allows us to do is reference a file within the operating system, allows us to open it up, allows us to basically reference its location on the hard drive. And again, we have to initialize it up top here and assign it a variable in order to use it within our code. And it sounds pretty complicated again, but it's actually not once you see how it's done. So the first thing we're going to do with the save preferences module here, or method here, is set these four properties to reflect what window main are at the current time. So you may think to yourself, well, why don't we just change these while this is being executed, or while this is being resized? Well, you really don't need it to, since save prefs isn't going to get called every time you're resizing your window. You just need it to be called whenever the user quits the application, or whenever you want them to actually save it manually. So in this case, we'll skip down a few lines here. We can just go to pwin height equals wmain dot height. And it's just like we did with referencing our static text here, except we don't need to convert it since this is an integer as well, and this is an integer here. We're going to do this for all the properties here. So pwin width equals wmain dot width. I spelled these two. And pwin left equals wmain dot left. And finally, pwin top equals wmain dot top. Alright, so simple enough. So now, as soon as the save prefs method gets called, basically all this is going to execute, and all these properties are going to get set to their appropriate values. So now that we have those set, let's go ahead and talk about the folder item and text output stream classes. So let's go ahead and initialize each one of those. So if you remember from episode 2, we have dim, and generally with a folder item you just do f as its variable name, since you're only gonna need to reference it. You only need to use one folder item generally within each method. You can use as, and then you'll notice it attempts to autocomplete there as folder item. And then we're going to come down here again and do dim t, just for text, as text output stream. So now you still may not understand that, and that's alright. I'm going to go ahead and show you exactly what those are going to do. So now we have these two initialized here. I guess for this line of code, or for this block of code here, let's go ahead and add a comment. We're going to do that just like that. Let's say set window properties. Alright, so that's commented, that's good. Remember, it's always good practice to comment your code. And for anybody who's going to go back and read it, even if not yourself, for anybody who's going to go back and look at your code, at least they know what you were thinking or what you were doing at the time. So this next block, let's go ahead and open up a file stream. So let's go ahead and add a comment here, say open file stream. And basically what we're going to be doing now is we're going to look for a file. In this case it's going to be preferences.txt. So we're going to save all this stuff into a text file. So we're going to look for preferences.txt. If it's not there, we're going to go ahead and create it. And if it is there, we're just going to go ahead and open it up and write to it, or just write over it. So again, we're going to come up here and reference f as a folder item. So we're going to do f equals, and then we're going to want to tell f what the name of the folder is, or what the name of the file is that we're gonna want. So in this case, it's going to be preferences.txt. Now we're going to need to put quotes around this since it's a proper name, or it's the name of a file and not an actual command. So f equals preferences.txt. Now, in order to tell f what it needs to do with this name here, Real Basic offers a method called getFolderItem, and getFolderItem will actually set its the file that it's going to be working with to preferences.txt here. So we can just go ahead and do getFolderItem, and we're going to put some parentheses around here. And if you don't understand this exactly, if you go up here to help and you come to language reference, this is a useful tool, very, very useful tool that Real Software has included in their software. And you can just come up here to the search field. You notice if I put get folder item and hit return, it'll bring us up with a list of everything. And you can just click on get folder item here, and you can read a lot more about how to use it and what exactly it does. You notice here it says used to access an item in a folder or directory. And I really don't want to confuse you guys with this too much now, so I'm just going to go ahead and close this. But basically, we're just referencing preferences.txt within a folder. And since I don't have any slashes in front of this, or actual folder directory, it's going to be looking in the directory that our application is in. So if, let's say our application was on our desktop, it'd be looking on our desktop for preferences.txt. So now, the next thing we're going to do, is we're going to switch to the t variable here, the text output stream, and we're going to tell t to create a new text file, preferences.txt. And what that's going to be doing is, even if preferences.txt already exists, it's going to just overwrite it immediately, which is what we want it to do generally, because we really don't need to save into the old preferences since we're just going to be updating them. So in order to do that, we're going to do t equals, and then the create text file method is contained within a folder item class. So we're going to do f.create text file. So basically our text output stream is going to be going to this newly created text file here, preferences.txt. So it's kind of a backwards loop there, but it works. So we can go ahead and save this, and the final thing to do with our text output stream here is to write something out to the file. And now before I write any of this data here, I'm just going to show you guys an example of how to write. So to write a line out to our text file, so right now our T has this preferences.txt file open already, and we're ready to write to it basically. So we can just do t.write line, and so what write line does is just basically all we have to do is pass write line a string, and we'll just write that string out to the file. So we open up quotations here. Let's just do hello world, and then finally we have to do t.close, and what t.close does is just closes out our file and basically frees up our memory. So let's switch back to window main here, and let's create a new push button right here at the bottom. It's going to say save pref, or just save, just to allow us to manually control and test when our file gets saved. So you can just go ahead and double click on push button there, and I'd say just drag it right about there. Let's change the caption here to save and hit return to set that. And now let's double click on this push button here and go into the open method, and you notice, or I'm sorry, the action method. You'll notice we're in the action method there. And let's go ahead and reference preferences.save. Now remember, we got to references. We have to reference it as preferences.saveprefs as opposed to just save prefs. You notice it won't allow us to do just save prefs. So if we go here and go to the beginning, preferences.saveprefs. So now as soon as we click that button, this method right here is going to get called. A new these properties are going to get set here, which is not going to do anything noticeable right now. And then this preferences.txt file is going to get created. We're going to write out the line hello world, and our text output stream is going to close. So basically the program you're not going to see do anything, but if we look at the desktop, you'll see the file get created. So let's go ahead and save this. Now since I saved this this project in the documents folder, our preferences file is going to get created in the documents folder. So I'm going to go ahead and run this and just minimize real basic here, and I'm going to go ahead and open up my my documents folder just so you guys can watch. So here I have my my project file, and this my application.debug is this actual application right here. So basically whenever you debug within an application within real basic, it creates just a little debugging application right here. So as soon as I hit save here, you can watch somewhere around here, and preferences file should get saved. And yep, there it is right there, preferences.txt, just as we set it. And if I double click to open this, you notice we got hello world right there. So we have our file saving out the way we want it to, and it wasn't too hard, as you notice. So let's go ahead and quit this, and I'm going to keep this here just so you can see how it gets overwritten. And you notice our debug application was deleted as soon as we quit that program. So go ahead and switch to real basic again. Let's come over here to our preferences method, and instead of t.writeLine hello world, I'm going to go ahead and output all these properties right there. So we're gonna, since I want each one to be on its own separate line, you're gonna have 4 separate t.write lines. So after each write line, it basically has a carriage return and skips to the next line. And so in this case we can do p when height But t.WriteLine needs a string, so let's go ahead and use the string converter method here to go ahead and convert that to a string. And we can just copy this and do it, I guess, 3 more times. Let's say pwin width, pwin top, and pwin left. Alright, so let's save this. So now whenever our preferences.savePrefs get called, our properties get set depending on the value of our window main there. Our file is created or overwritten in our case. And then these properties right here are accessed and converted to a string and then written out to our file, and then the file is closed. So let's go ahead and run this and I'll show you exactly what goes on. So we can minimize, real basic there. And again, right now in the preferences file we have hello world. So as soon as I hit the save button, nothing happened that you can see here, but when I open this, you notice we have our width, our height of 300, and our left of 418 there. So great, that worked perfectly. So we can go ahead and quit text edit there and quit our debugging application and switch back to real basic. So we have our properties writing out the way we want them to. So now I'm going to explain to you a special way to kind of organize your preferences file. So let me go ahead and open that back up. Now, if you were just to open up this preferences file and see these 4 numbers, you'd have no idea what they mean, right? So an easy way to kind of give these values a name within this preferences file and not actually interfere with the value itself is to use a special naming convention. So what we're going to do is we're going to add just an open bracket here. We're going to do pwin height and then close that, and then we're going to come to the end here. We're going to use an open bracket again, and we're going to use a slash to basically tell our program that this is the end of win height, and we're going to do pwin height again. So whenever we're reading this, we're going to basically search for pwin height. We're going to read what's between these 2 lines, and then we're going to look for the end of pwin height. So we're going to do that for all 4 of these right here. So we can just close this and don't save, and come back here to our write line functions there, and let's add those properties there. So let's do pwin height and then close that, and then the plus operator is going to add our height property, and we can add to the end of that pwin height. And let's do the same thing for all 3 of these. We can just do pwin width, and win top, and finally left. And then we're going to add the closing brackets here. Now you may be wondering why it's important to do this. For one thing, imagine if you had, let's say 10,000 properties that you needed to write out to a file, and you needed to debug it somehow or figure out where exactly your error was in the program, or you even just needed to kind of read the properties really quickly. So let's go ahead and save this and run it, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So let's minimize this and come over here and go to save, and we should have all this data in there, and we do. That's perfect. And now you'll see we have pwin height here, pwin width of 300, top of 129, which is perfect, and a left of 524. So that's basically exactly how we're going to want our preference files to be. So now whenever we're going to open up the application, we can simply read that preferences file and basically load it how we need to. So let's go ahead and close this, and switch back to real basic. So we're pretty much done with our save prefs method here. The next thing we're going to want to do is switch to our load prefs method, or add our load prefs method. So we'll come up here to the toolbar and let's click the add method button, and let's add a load prefs. And again, we want this one to be public since we want to access it through the preferences module. And let's go ahead and get started with this one. Again, we're going to need, like save preferences, we're going to need a folder item and a text stream, but instead of a text output stream, we're going to use a text input stream since we're going to be reading in. So again, we can use f as a folder item, so it's dim f as folder item, and then we can do dim t as text input stream. And now we're going to want to do the same thing like we did in save prefs. We're going to want to set f to our folder item of preferences.txt. So we can do f equals get folder item again, and then the name of our preferences file, which is preferences.txt, close that, and close the parentheses right there. The way we're going to check if the file exists or not is it's actually pretty clever. Skip down a couple lines. We're going to use an if bracket, or an if statement here. We're going to say if f is less than or greater than nil, then. Now what nil is nil is the same thing as nothing. So if f is what less than and greater than together like that means is not equal to. So if f is not equal to nothing, then we can go ahead and load that file up. And then we can just put an end if here. So basically what we're going to want to do in here is use the text input stream to open up the file. So basically this is like a first fail-safe there. So if this folder item does not exist, then we don't even need to run any of this. So now we can do t equals f dot, and then again, folder item contains an open as text file method, and basically that allows t, our text input stream, to open our file preferences.txt here, f. So f is referencing preferences.txt as a text file, and allows us to read in the data that's in there. So we can do open as text file, and then again we're going to have another failsafe here that's going to double check that our file opened safely and opened properly, that we have the ability to read from it. So we're going to have another does not equal statement here. So if t is not equal to nil, then basically in here we're going to have it read the data, but else we're going to just add a comment here that says could not open preferences file, and then close out this if block. So basically if we couldn't read in the file, then we're not going to do anything. We're just going to load the defaults of the window. Otherwise we're going to load the saved preferences from before and set the properties of the window to that. So the only reason we'd get here would be if the file was corrupted for some reason, or if the user actually ran the program for the first time, since there wouldn't be the file even existing. So let's go ahead and set these properties here to the data that's contained within the text file. Now this is going to get a bit tricky because of the way we added these lines right here, but in the end it's going to actually work out pretty well. We could just do wmain.height equals t.readLine. However, since wmain.height requires an integer, and t.readLine is a string containing this line of text right here, it wouldn't really work. You wouldn't have to set it. So basically what we're going to need to do is parse out this middle integer right there, the 300 right here, that's between p1 height, the opening p1 height and the closing p1 height here. So let's go ahead and close this, and we're going to create a special function. It's going to actually return an integer to us that's going to allow us to set this really easily. So let's go ahead and remove this, and let's create a new method up here, and we're going to call this method Parse Line. And now here's where we're going to actually use this parameters and return type fields here. For the parameters, any data you want to basically hand to this function to work with. So from the outside here, from the Load Prefs method, we're going to want to read in the line from the text input stream and actually pass that line or that string of text over to this Parse Line method here, so that it can work with that data. So in order to do that, we can basically we're going to have a variable here, line as string. Now you can name this pretty much anything you want. This is just what we're going to reference it within this method as. It doesn't have to necessarily match anything with the load preferences method. So now basically the parse line method, it requires a string to be passed to it in order to function. And now we're going to want a string, and then we're going to also want a name of the property that we're looking for. And so in this case, it's going to be the name, contained within each one of these. Now we're not going to want the brackets. We're simply going to want the name. So p-win height, p-win width, p-win top. So basically the name of the property we're going to want to request it. So in that case, we're going to have also name as string. And you'll understand a bit more what I'm talking about once we start writing. And then return type is what type of data gets returned. Now, if you're kind of confused about what I mean by returned and passing, the way a method works is that if I call a method from here, so if I say parse line, and then I were to pass it, let's say t.write or read line, and then let's say p-win height, and then close that. So basically, I'm calling the parse line function here, a method, and I'm sending it these two pieces of data, t.readLine, so basically the first line that we read out of the file, and then this word p-win height. And we can allow parse line to do whatever we want with that chunk of data. So now within this function we have those two pieces of data, but in this case they're referenced as line and as name, and line being t.readLine and the name being p-win height. And once we have done everything with the data, we can return, basically we come back from the execution here, and parse line returns some sort of data. So we can set p-win height equal to, and then we're going to need parse line to return an integer, right? So we come over here to return type and type in integer. Now you don't need to set a name or a variable name for this, since it doesn't really matter. You just need to return it. So basically now parse line is going to set p-win height to whatever it gets returned to. So let's come over here to parse line and start writing the stuff we're going to need in here. So we're going to introduce a few new methods and string operators. And basically what a string operator is different things that we can do to a string to kind of get data out of it. We're going to want to create a few new variables here. Just go with me and I'll explain a little bit more of what I'm doing. So let's go ahead and let's dim start and put a comma and finish. And again, you can use the comma to do more than one variable. We're going to set these as integers. And let's go ahead and set these to 0 as a default. And come down a few lines. And let's go ahead and start with the start variable. So now Real Basic contains a function titled instr or inString. So the inString method requires two things to be passed to it: a source string, so basically the string you're going to be doing the searching in, and then a line in the string you want to search for, or like a word in the string you want to search for. And in our case, we're going to want to search for, let me open this up again, we're going to want to search for basically less than p-win height and greater than, so this piece of data right here. So that's what we're going to want to be searching for, and then we're going to want to be searching for it in this line string that we pass. So basically we're getting past this whole piece of data right here, just the highlighted, not the whole chunk, just the first line, and we're going to want to search for this right here. So in order to do that, we can do inString, and then pass in string line, and line is that whole string right there, and then in comma. Since name is only the name of the property, we're going to need to add that less than and greater than sign to it. So we can have less than plus name plus greater than, and then close that off, parentheses. So now basically we're passing in string this line right here plus this right here, p1 height with the two symbols on either end. So now it's gonna, in string is gonna search through this line right here, so it's gonna find it right here, and it's gonna give us the position within the string that it's located at, and so it should return 1. So by position I mean as far as characters into the string. So if I was searching for the the number 3 or whatever, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 spaces into the string. But in our case, this is going to be 1 into the string since it's the very first thing. So start is getting set to 1 there. So now let's go ahead and set finish to the same thing, but we're going to want to add the slash here. And that's the whole reason for adding the slash here, is that if we didn't have a slash and it was just like that, as soon as you did in string, it would return 1 again. It wouldn't return our ending string here. So it basically allows us to decipher the difference between the beginning and the end of our line. So let's do the same thing here. We're going to do in string line and then put a slash there plus name, since it's going to be the same, and then close that. Alright, so in string returns the beginning of your string. So to give you an example here, we have, let's copy this line. Okay, so start is going to return 1 right here. Finish is going to return right here. So we're going to want to copy just this data. So in order to do that, we need to set our cursor, or imagine like an imaginary cursor. We need to set our imaginary cursor from the beginning here to the end right here, just the cursor. We're not going to highlight any of this, we're just going to set it right here as the starting point. So in order to do that, we need to get the length of this string and basically set our cursor position to right here. And in order to do that, we can use the len property. And len, basically, if you pass len a string, it returns the length of that string in characters. So start's going to be our starting position of the cursor. So right now start is positioned right here, so we're going to want to go ahead and count how many characters is in p1 height. So let's do plus len, and since p1 height is referenced as name within this method, we can do name. So now we started here, so we have in string line, and then this name here, so it's still going to stay here. And then we're going to have name, and name is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 characters long. So from the start here, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 characters. So now we still have 2 characters here at the end. And the reason we have those 2 is, remember, we added these 2 brackets here, or these 2 symbols here. So we're just going to want to come to the end here and do plus 2. So now we were right here, so now it's just going to go 1 and 2. So now our starting position is right here at the beginning of the 3, and that's perfect. That's where we're going to want it to be. And our finishing cursor is going to be right here at the beginning of p1 height, and that's perfect. We're not going to want it to be here. We're going to want it to be here, since we're only going to want to highlight this amount of data. So basically, we're setting a starting bracket and an ending bracket and copying everything in between. So let me skip this down a few lines here. So now len requires 3 things: the source string, the start position, and then the length of data you want to read, or how many characters you want to read from it, basically. So let's pass it line, since line is going to be our source string, and start, since start is going to be our starting position, and start's going to be, again, right here, right at the beginning of 3. Now you may be wondering, how are we going to know how long this is? And that's the whole reason we have the finishing cursor. If you simply subtract our finish value from our start value, you'll be returned with this right here. So to show you, our finish would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 from the start. So if you have 15 here, minus, and then our start position would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, minus 12 equals 3. So hence we have 3 characters we need to read. So in order to do that, you come up here and you do finish minus start and close that out. And generally I like to put spaces there just to kind of organize things up. And so since len returns something, we have to actually set this to something. And since this is the data, basically this whole function was for, we can simply return it to our load preferences file, or load preferences method here. But since it returns a string and we need to return an integer, we need to go ahead and use the val method, which is just like the str method but converts a string to an integer. We can simply put val around len here, and that'll convert this 300 from a 300 string to 300 integer. And then we can just put the word return right there. And we can just return this value of the read in data right here back to the function that called it. We can just delete this right here. So I know it's probably still a bit confusing, but read through this slowly, kind of go step by step, figure out what each thing is doing, and it'll become really, really clear to you. So let's go ahead and save that. Make sure you save that. I'm going to come back up here to this load prefs here. So here we can start to understand exactly what's going on. So let's start from the beginning here. So we open up a preferences file here. If our file exists, let's go ahead and open up as a text file. If it opened up correctly, there were no errors. We come here, let's start at the end. We do a t.readLine, so we read that first line, right? And since we're wanting to set our win height here, and we know our first line is p-win height, we need to pass our function parse line, that read in line, and the variable that we're trying to set, right? So we enter into the parse line function with these 2 bits of data here. So we're into the parse line function. Now we have here, let's switch back to load prefs. We have t.readLine as the first variable, p-win height as the second variable. So from now on, that t.readLine is going to be line, and that p-win height or p-win width, whatever, is going to be referenced as name. So now we're into the function here, and we create these 2 variables up top, and we set these variables to the start position and the finish position, right? And then we locate our data that we need. We convert that data to an integer and return that integer back all the way back to load preferences and set that equal to p-win height. So you got to kind of work in reverse here. And it's a bit confusing, but again, read through it slowly, kind of do the steps, even do the steps on a piece of paper if you want, and you'll start to understand it if you do it a couple times. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the same thing here for all 4 of our variables. So let's just copy and paste that. And we can change this to p-win. Let's see, what's the order? Width, top, and left. Width, change this to width again. This could be top. Top, and finally left. And you see, the reason we wrote this parse line function would be, if we didn't, we'd have to do, for each one of these, we'd have to do this, we have to copy this code 4 times. And basically it's a lot easier. It saves us a lot of time, and a lot of screen space, and it actually executes it really a bit faster. So we have this data, we've set these preferences, or I'm sorry, these properties to the data that was in the saved file, and now we're going to simply want to set the window properties accordingly. So we can just skip down a few lines here. We can say wmain.height equals p-win height, wmain width equals p win width. I misspelled that. Wmain dot top equals p win top, and finally wwin or wmain dot left equals p win left. Now you could have skipped these 4 steps and simply set set these properties to this right here. So you could have done wwin.height equals parse line t.read line comma p1 height, but you know, whatever, it's you can see just the difference here with setting properties and retrieving properties. So by setting the window properties here, we're actually gonna be resizing the window on the screen. So as soon as we do this, the window is gonna resize itself and relocate itself on the operating system desktop or wherever it's located. So we're pretty much done with the load prefs here. We can go ahead and close the preferences module there, and I understand that was a bit tricky, but again, go over it, you know, read through it, practice it, and you'll start to understand it a bit more. So now let's go ahead and add a load button in here so I can show you exactly what's going on. So let's locate the push button control here, double click on it, we can add the button, drag it just right there, and let's change the caption to load, hit return, and let's open up the action method. Now let's do preferences dot load prefs, and we can save this, come up here, and let's go ahead and change the names of these 2 buttons to their appropriate names. We can just do btn save, and this one can be btn load up here in the property pane. And we're not really going to be referencing these buttons, but again, it's just good practice. And maybe we can go ahead and bring the window height up here just a bit, and that looks about good. And let's save that. Now when the user is going to be resizing, we're going to want these 2 buttons to kind of resize with the window, I guess. So let's go ahead and click these 2, and let's lock them to the bottom and to the right side of the window. So let's say right and lock bottom, and we can go ahead and save that. So now, oh, actually this needs to be mid instead of len, I'm sorry. So now we're returning the mid of the line here instead of the length of the line. So let's go ahead and save that and close out. And so now our load and our save buttons are going to be working to load the preferences and to save the preferences. So let's go ahead and let's quit out of this so we don't get any errors there, and let's go ahead and run this. So in order to test out these load and save buttons here, let's go ahead and drag our window here to the center, and let's go ahead and save the settings that it is right now. So we're at 300 and 227, and our left and our top. So let's go ahead and hit save. So now our file got saved and our properties got written out to the file. So now if I move this over here, let's say drag this down here, I didn't hit the save button, so our old preferences are still saved in there. So as soon as I hit the load button, our window should move back over to the left, and this should come back up to 300 and 227. And you notice it did that perfectly. Now our values didn't get updated here because we didn't put the proper code in the resized window. But you can see that the window obviously is reading the preferences appropriately. And you notice if I bring this out here, hit load, it resets it. Or out here, and put it over here, brings it back to the same thing. So our load and our save functions are working perfectly, so we can go ahead and quit this. Now generally, if you're using an application, you're not going to have a load preferences and a save preferences button. You're going to want it to do it automatically. So that's very easy to do. All we have to do is switch over to our project tab here, and this is our first time we're going to introduce the app class here, and so basically the back end of the application. You notice if you come over here to the property value pane, you can see lots and lots of preferences and properties about about the application right now. But let's go ahead and open this up and drop down this event handler here if it's not already opened. Let's come to the open method right there. Now the open method is called as soon as the application is run. Even before any windows are open, this is the very first thing that is run. And so basically in here we're going to want to read in our preferences so that our windows get set accordingly and everything gets set appropriately. So we can simply do preferences dot load prefs. So as soon as we call this, window main is going to get set to the appropriate size as soon as the window opens. We're not even going to have to hit the load preferences button. So we can save that. And so now we're going to want to save the preferences as soon as the window main closes. So now we're not going to want to do it here in close because this is going to be when the application closes. We're going to want to do it when window main closes. So switch over here to window main and just double click to get to the code view and locate the close method here. And just click on the close method and let's do preferences dot save prefs. And so now as soon as we close this window, the preferences of the window will get saved out to the file, and we can quit the application and open it up, and everything should hopefully be working the way we need it to. So let's save that and go ahead and run it. So now you'll notice the window started here instead of up here because it already automatically read in our preferences file that we had saved from the last time. So if you notice, if I move this over here, maybe expand this a bit, I'm not going to hit the save button. I'm simply going to quit the application. And all I have to do is run it again. It should automatically open up right here. So simply run it again, and voila, opens up right where we left it. So you see, it's pretty easy to write out to a file. I know it seems like we did a lot, but I was just kind of explaining as I was going. Go back over, read through the code here in our preferences module, and kind of it doesn't look like too much, but it is pretty detailed. Go through it, read through it, see the process that we took in order to get the results that we did, and you can sort of figure out exactly what we did, and maybe you can even write your own preferences files as you need for your application. So this is a pretty good start for text input streams, text output streams, folder items. There's a lot more detailed. Again, look at the language reference up here in your help menu. I can't even explain to you how much of a resource it is. I mean, it's pretty much the best resource you have. Play around with this, make your own applications, submit them to the forums. Guys, get on the forums, get on the site, send me your comments, send me your questions, anything you need. If you have a question about the project or you're confused, I'd be more than happy to help you. Definitely go up to the site, sign up, become a member, join the community, and help us out, help keep this the best that it can be. For RBtv, I'm your host, George Bonish. Tune in next time. See ya.